Welcome back, dear friends, to the Crimson Academy's course on the Kitab-i-Iqan. In this section, we're covering paragraphs 172 through 174 of the Kitab-i-Iqan. His Holiness Baha'u'llah describes the real meaning of the term seal of the prophets that is used in reference to Muhammad in one of the verses of the Quran. The Muslim clergy claim that the seal of the prophets implies the finality of Muhammad as the last messenger of God and that there will be no prophet after him. His Holiness Baha'u'llah refutes this claim and demonstrates that such references to Muhammad should be understood in the context of the spiritual worlds, in which the first and the last are identical. Dear friends, we share with you 7 key points from these paragraphs. The first key point states, the Muslim clergy claim that the term seal of the prophets in the Quran implies Muhammad to be the last messenger sent from God. The next, the context in which the term seal of the prophets has been revealed does not match the claim made by the Muslim clergy. The next key point states, Muhammad has referred to himself as the first Adam and all the prophets. This is not possible in the physical world. The next key point states the terms first and last, when used in reference to God, cannot be interpreted in the context of the material world. Another key point, whatever meaning is attributed to the terms first and last in relationship to God, the same applies to his manifestations. The sixth key point, if the reference to the last implies the finality of a manifestation of God, then Jesus Christ should have been the last messenger of God, and Muhammad should not have appeared after him. And the final key point, a contradiction arises from the belief in the finality of Muhammad, as the Quran foretells the return of Jesus Christ and the coming of the Mahdi on the day of resurrection. In paragraph 172, His Holiness Baha'u'llah begins his explanation of the meaning of the term seal of the prophet, as mentioned in the following verse of the Quran in reference to Muhammad. Muhammad is not the father of any man among you, but he is the apostle of God, and the seal of the prophets, and God knoweth all things. And friends, this is in chapter 33, verse 40 of the Quran. The Muslim clergy claim that seal of the prophets in this verse implies the finality of Muhammad as the last messenger of God, and that there will be no prophet after him. This verse was revealed in defense of Muhammad when he was criticized for marrying Zainab bint Jahsh in March 627. Zainab was the sister of Abdullah, the cousin of Muhammad, who died at the Battle of Badr. Before marrying Muhammad, Zainab was wedded to Zayd, a slave who was freed by Muhammad and adopted as his son. Zainab was not happy with that marriage due to the low status of Zayd, but it took place against her wishes. According to one account, and this account is from Baliuzi's book Muhammad in the Course of Islam, page 90, There is an improbable story that one day Muhammad called on Zayd, who was not at home. Finding Zainab not fully dressed and seeing her thus, it is said that Muhammad fell in love with her. And when Zayd heard of it, he divorced his wife that Muhammad might marry her. It must be remembered that being Muhammad's cousin and married to his adopted son, she had not known to him over many years. Certainly, it could not have been love at first sight. Moreover, Zainab's youth had long passed, and she was only 2 or 3 years short of her 40th year. People in Medina looked unfavorably on the marriage between Muhammad and Zainab, because she had been married to his adopted son. A number of verses in the Confederates Surah deal with this marriage and the events surrounding it. And it is not for a believer, man or woman, to have any choice in their affairs when God and his apostle have decreed a matter. And whoever disobeyeth God and his apostle erreth with palpable error. And remember when thou saidst to him unto whom God hath shown favor, and to whom thou also hadst shown favor, keep thy wife to thyself and fear God. And thou didst hide in thy mind what God would bring to light, and thou didst fear man, but more right had it been to fear God. And when Zayd had settled concerning her to divorce her, we married her to thee, that it might not be a crime in the faithful to marry the wives of their adopted sons, when they have settled the affair concerning them, and the behest of God is to be performed. No blame attacheth to the prophet where God hath given him a permission. Such was the way of God with those prophets who flourished before thee. For God's behest is a fixed decree, who fulfilled the mission with which God had charged them, and feared him, and feared none but God. And God taketh a sufficient account. Muhammad is not the father of any man among you, but he is the apostle of God, and the seal of the prophets, and God knoweth all things. And friends, you can find this in the Quran, chapter 33, verses 36 through 40. It is interesting to note that Zayd is the only companion of Muhammad whose name is explicitly mentioned in the entire Quran. His Holiness Baha'u'llah states in paragraph 172 that some of the Muslims have allowed the term seal of the prophets to becloud their understanding, to prevent them from recognizing the Bab on the day of resurrection, and to deprive themselves of the grace and bounties of God. The belief in the finality of Muhammad as the last manifestation of God based on the term seal of the prophets is shown to be inaccurate in the Baha'i writings for a number of reasons. In paragraphs 172 and 173, Baha'u'llah disproves this view by stating that in the spiritual worlds of God, the first and the last are identical. His Holiness Baha'u'llah once more refers to the announcements made by Muhammad. I am all the prophets, and I am Adam, Noah, Moses, and Jesus. And friends, you can find Baha'u'llah cited these two hadiths in paragraph 161. And there would be a great deal of confusion and contradiction if the context of these two hadiths were literally interpreted as pertaining to the physical world. For example, Muhammad was certainly a different individual from all of the other prophets of God. In comparison to Adam, the first prophet of this universal cycle, Muhammad was born and raised in the Arabian Peninsula, thousands of years after him. Hence, Muhammad could not have meant that he was literally the physical return of Adam. Symbolically, and within the context of the spiritual realms, Muhammad can also announce, "I am the last Adam," or the seal of the prophets, with no intention to mean that he is the last prophet of God. Hence the terms first and last in these verses do not relate to the time sequence and the order observed in the physical world. His Holiness Baha'u'llah states in paragraph 173 that the terms first and last, when used in reference to God, cannot be interpreted in the context of the material world, as it would imply a manifest contradiction in this earthly world. There are obvious examples in the Quran that confirm this argument. One example is the following verse: "In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. All that is in the heavens and in the earth praiseth God, and He is the Mighty, the Wise. His the kingdom of the heavens and of the earth. He maketh alive and killeth, and He hath power over all things. He is the first and the last, the seen and the hidden, and He knoweth all things." And friends, this is from the 57th chapter of the Quran, verses 1 through 4. Since the end of the physical world has not reached, the terms first and last pertaining to God in this verse cannot be interpreted in the context of the physical world. Such references to God are in a realm well beyond the relative and limited material world. Baha'u'llah refers to the beginning of this world as the beginning that hath no beginnings, since the creation of God has no beginning. In paragraph 173, His Holiness Baha'u'llah restates that whatever meaning is attributed to the terms first and last in relationship to God, the same applies to His manifestations. In fact, if we were to open our spiritual eyes, we would perceive that the manifestations of God represent the first and the last, the manifest and the hidden, and the beginning and the seal. If we were to soar to the domain of God was alone, there was none else besides Him, then we would find that attributes such as the first, the last, the beginning and the end do not exist anymore, as they are situated in the world of the abstract. The statement "God was alone" is a hadith narrated from the Imams of Islam and refers to the revelation of God as His reality with no names or attributes. This is the situation where God is a hidden treasure. Elsewhere, His Holiness Baha'u'llah explains, "By this is meant that the habitation wherein the Divine Being dwelleth is far above the reach and ken of anyone besides Him. Whatsoever in the contingent world can either be expressed or apprehended can never transgress the limits which, by its inherent nature, have been imposed upon it. God alone transcendeth such limitations. He verily is from everlasting. No peer or partner has been or can ever be joined with Him. No name can be compared with His name. No pen can portray His nature. Neither can any tongue depict his glory. He will forever remain immeasurably exalted above anyone except himself. And friends, this is from the Gleanings from the Writings of Baha'u'llah, page 150. His Holiness Baha'u'llah explains that those individuals who, in a single step, have passed over the world of the relative and the limited, and dwelt on the fair plain of the absolute, and pitched their tent in the worlds of authority and command, have burned away these relativities with a single spark, and blotted out these words with a drop of dew. In such a realm, the first is the last itself, and the last is but the first. And friends, you can find this in the Seven Valleys, page 27. His Holiness Baha'u'llah also mentions that while in the valley of knowledge, the seeker should see the end at the beginning. However, the people of the valleys above this see the end and the beginning as one. Nay, they see neither beginning nor end, and witness neither first nor last. Nay, rather, the denizens of the undying city, who dwell in the green garden land, see not even neither first nor last. They fly from all that is first, and repulse all that is last. For these have passed over the worlds of names, and fled beyond the worlds of attributes, as swift as lightning. And you could find this in the Baha'u'llah's book, The Seven Valleys, page 15. Similar statements have also been made in previous dispensations. For example, we read in the book of Isaiah, "Hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel. My called, I am he, I am the first, I also am the last." This is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 48, verse 12. And His Holiness Jesus Christ has also said, "I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last." And this is in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 6. And likewise he has emphasized, "Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away." And friends, this is from the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 33. In a reference to the last implies the finality of a manifestation of God. Then Jesus Christ should have been the last messenger of God, not Muhammad. In addition, if the words of Jesus Christ were literally meant not to change, then Muhammad should not have revealed the Quran. The Islamic belief that Muhammad was the true successor of Christ as the next prophet of God proves that such symbolic statements in Holy Scriptures cannot be literally interpreted. Another contradiction arises from the belief in the finality of Muhammad. The Quran explicitly foretells the return of Jesus Christ, as well as the coming of the Mahdi on the day of resurrection. In fact, all branches of Islam expect the coming of two manifestations of God, though they are called by different names. This surely proves that Muhammad could not have been the last prophet of God. Thank you, dear friends.